welcome everyone. So this is a special edition of our lunch talks. Firstly, it will be held in English, and secondly, this lunch talk is part of a series of activities organized by the Sustainability Office, the Green Office, Eco Teams, Students' Unions, and many others. You can find a whole range of activities within this Sustainability Week on the website. And thirdly, this lunch conversation is special because it's the result of a joint initiative of Metaforum and Una.Europe. Una.Europa, an alliance of 11 European universities. Sustainability and climate change will remain key challenges for research and education in the coming years. As a university, KU Leuven does not want to face these challenges alone, but together in partnership with other European universities. And this afternoon discussion will show, also with non-academic partners such as cities and municipalities. KU Leuven and Una.Europa want to make a difference by addressing sustainability not only in teaching, learning and research, but also in campus management and community engagement. So what is the conversation about today? We ask the question, how can strategic planning and partnership between cities, universities and citizens bridge the gap between ambition and action for climate resilient and healthy cities? Ben Somers of Bioscience Engineering KU Leuven will show how universities can play a central role in transforming your urban landscapes towards sustainability, and Baptist Vlaeminck from Project Manager Climate Adaptation City of Leuven will discuss how Leuven, together with its citizens, is translating these insights into real action. I will now give the floor to Ben Somers.
Okay, thank you. Welcome. I want to start by saying that 55% of all the people in the world, they live in urbanized environments, they live in cities. And by 2050, the projection is that it will raise to 70%, or almost 70% of the world population that lives in cities. And if I would look around here and I would ask the question, who of you works and or lives in an urban environment, I think that all of you will say, yes, I do. So urban environments are very important and will become more and more important, and it's all good fun to live in cities, but cities and urbanization also goes hand in hand with quite some environmental challenges. Here are a few. We have more and more problems with heat stress in cities, air, water and soil pollution. We have overcrowding. There is light pollution, noise pollution. We have biodiversity loss and many more challenges. And as I said before, we live in that urban environment. So all of us are on a daily basis exposed to that urban environment with all its environmental challenges. So urbanization is posing health risks, potential health risks for all of us. And that's already today. But what if we think about the population growth that is ahead of us and climate change? If we today have problems with heat in cities, I can promise you that we will have even more problems in the near future with heat stress in cities. So this brings me to the core of my research, my conviction is that one of the main societal challenges for the near future is to ensure the quality of life in the current but also in our future cities. And so what we're trying to do is or my ultimate goal is to improve local quality of life in cities by using nature as a solution. Indeed, by integrating green spaces into the city, exactly there where we live. And it's very needed. This is results of a pan-European study that revealed that cities in Europe could prevent up to 34,000 deaths per year if we would provide access to green space as recommended by the WHO, by the World Health Organization. Today, 60% or more than 60% of Europeans don't have access to enough green spaces according to the World Health Organization. And this one is a not so nice picture for all of us here in Belgium. This is the top 10 European capital cities with the highest mortality due to a lack of green spaces. And on the top, there's Brussels. So there's quite some work to be done. But why is it so important to integrate green spaces in the city? Well, I'm a bioscience engineer, and I don't see a tree. What I see is an engineering tool. For me, that tree is my air conditioning system. If I position this tree in the right place in the city, I can effectively cool down the environment. It's my air filterer. That tree removes pollutants, harmful pollutants from the air. It obviously is a harbor for biodiversity. It regulates my water balance, and so on. So I'm not the only one who is convinced about that. There's many people, and also the people that have to effectively do the job and put the trees in the city. So Baptist and his team are really aware of that, but they run into trouble. When they start to do it, start to integrate green space in the city, they run into a lot of questions. Where to integrate green spaces? What type of green space do we integrate? How much green space is needed to create a healthy environment? Is one tree enough? Do we have to put 700 trees? What is enough? And that's also what the Flemish government asked themselves a year ago. A year ago, they asked the question, how can we support local governments, municipalities in their green management? How can we give them guidelines or simple rules so that they know, okay, there I have to put trees, there I have to put so many green spaces, and so on. And that's exactly what we investigated in the last year. We actually developed green norms for spatial planning for Flanders. And the first thing we did was not to invent everything over again. We looked around what was already out there. And there is already a very simple but effective rule that is applied in many different places in our neighboring countries. And that's a rule of my colleague Cecile Konijnendijk. And it's a simple but effective rule. It says that why it's an effective rule, because it's looking at green spaces from many different angles. Like a tree, we need to see trees, that's the first thing. Visible green space is the first thing that we need. And the rule says from every house or every workspace we need to see 3 mature trees. The next thing is, but also the green spaces that we don't see are important. That's what I call climate or functional green space. The green behind the walls there are having an impact on the air quality and the temperature outside here. So the rule says 30% of the neighborhood where we live needs to be covered by green space. And the last one is, we don't only need to see green, we don't only need to live in the neighborhood of green, we also have to be able to access the green space, being active in green environments. So the third part of the rule says, from every house, there has to be, within 300 meters of every house, there has to be an accessible green space. A green space where you can go and walk, go and meet people, go and exercise. So basically we have to see green, be in green, and do in green. But we also looked a bit further into that rule, and if you look at the definition of health by the World Health Organization, then the definition says health is a combination of physical health, mental health, and social health. If you look carefully to this definition, and then again to the rule, then we basically can almost one-on-one make the connection. Seeing green is very good for our mental well-being. Living in an environment where the green spaces filter the air, reduces the temperature, is good for our physical health. And having access to green space, there everything comes together. It's not only good for our mental health to go and walk around in the forest or in a park. It's not only good for our physical health, but it's also good for our social health, because there is where we meet people, where we interact with people. So this, what we call 330-300 rule, is, in my opinion, a very simple but effective rule to advise city planners on their green space plans. But we were a bit skeptical. I'm a scientist, and if I hear a 330-300 rule is good for more trees in the city, three trees, it sounds like a commercial, right? So we were very skeptical, and as a good scientist, what we did is we did some research on it. So we screened all the literature, the scientific literature that was available, and we looked at, is it now the 330-300 rule, or should it be the 570-200 rule? Well, we could not verify whether it's 3 trees or 5 trees, simply because there is no scientific evidence about how many visible green is good for your health. The only thing that they could verify is if people see green, they are more healthy than the people that don't see green. So that was a bit unfortunate, but for the other two, we came to results of 28% of green and 400 meters to the nearest park. I think it's quite okay. 28, 30, 300, 400 meters. So in the end, together with some experts, we decided, okay, that 330-300 rule is not so bad after all. So we advised to the Flemish government that the Flemish green norms should use the 330-300 rule as the basis. But we also supported the idea, which was also coming from our research and which we found very important, is that if we consider this as a green norm, that green norm is even more important in regions where many people live, so in city centers or in densely populated areas, but also there where vulnerable people live, people that have a lower socioeconomic status, that are already more susceptible for weaker health. Okay, so we now have this rule in place. Let's see how far we are here in Leuven. We calculated, that is actually my core expertise with my team. We are specialized in geo-ICT, so we use LiDAR data, airborne observations, drones, we use satellite images, we use Google Street View data, Google Maps, all of these geodata, and then we put that into computer algorithms, artificial intelligence, and based on these methods, we actually quantified how many trees could be seen from every house in Leuven, what was the vegetation cover all around Leuven, and what was the distance to the nearest publicly accessible green space. And then we created this graph, or this image of the city of Leuven, and very quickly said these green areas, solid green areas, are the areas of Leuven where the rule is okay, where we comply with the rule, with the 3, with the 30, and with the 300. The red one, it's exactly the opposite. There we comply with none of the 3 components. Visible trees, accessible green space, not met, and also the cover of green is not met there. And then all the others are in-between situations. So for instance, if you took the yellow ones, they're only the 3, the component 3 is met, but the 30 and the 300 is not met there. Okay, but the clue of my whole story is coming now. We can blame the city and say, yeah, you have to do more. Maybe yes, but I know Baptist, they are already pushing the limit. But then you have to look at the ownership of the land in the city. It's not all owned by the city. All these orange areas are you. It's private gardens, private terrain. And then you have these blue areas, and that's KU Leuven terrain. So if we, it's obviously that the city has its responsibility, but let's look at the responsibility of the KU Leuven. So here you see a map where the light green areas are areas where the people that live there have access to green space due to the green that is available on the public terrain, due to the city. And then we move to another scenario. These light green areas are areas where the KU Leuven is responsible for providing accessibility to green space. So today, 2,500 people have access to green space within 300 meters because of the KU Leuven green spaces. But what if we are ambitious, like we should be as a university, and try to go to the maximum scenario where we green all of the KU Leuven terrains? Then there is an additional 12,700 individuals that will gain access to green space within 300 meters compared to the current situation. So if you put this all together, there is a potential for the KU Leuven to provide access to more than 15,000 people in Leuven to green space within 300 meters, which is about 15% of the population of Leuven. So I think that the KU Leuven has a large responsibility here, and this is for visible trees. Same story. The KU Leuven has the potential to provide trees, visible trees within 30 meters for more than 1,300 households, and if we do an extra effort, we can increase that to more than 2,000 households. So this is a situation if we ignore the KU Leuven. Remember, the green areas are the areas where we have to be. Yeah? Ideally, the whole of Leuven is green, like this. Then we comply with the green norms, which is now the advice of the Flemish government. We're far away from it if we ignore the KU Leuven. If we look at what the KU Leuven today contributes, it's already a bit better. But if we do the maximum what we can, then we see that we can really make a major difference and help the city to comply with the 330-300. So, to come to a conclusion, what I want to do today is to launch a call for action. A call for action to set up a strong partnership between the KU Leuven and the city of Leuven. But there was not a lot of time. We are working on a project which is about gardens. If I would make this exercise for gardens, you would see that with KU Leuven, the university and the citizens working together, we are very close to where we have to be if we all make an extra effort and all put an extra tree in our garden. And that's a bit the call of action I wanted to bring today. I now am going to hand the floor to Baptist. We specifically asked Baptist to talk after me because he will give a good practice example of how such a collaboration can work, because that's the main challenge. He hasn't worked with the university on the university reigns, but he worked with citizens. But the main challenge is, or the main question is, this is quite obvious. Why don't we do it yet today? What are the bottlenecks? And that's something we and some others this afternoon will discuss about on how can we take away the bottlenecks. But Baptiste will already show you how he did that.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Baptiste. I work for the city of Leuven, and I work on a European project which is called Life Pact. And PACT stands for People-Driven Adapting Cities for Tomorrow. Adapting cities for tomorrow is quite obvious. It's about climate change adaptation, and the people-driven factor is because we try to do it in a participatory way. The main goal is that we take people on board throughout our journey of greening the city, and by informing them, we try to create a bigger support and a bigger awareness for the need of climate change adaptation and the need of greening the city. Like I said, it's a European project. We work together with the cities of Madrid and Krakow. Here are all of the partners involved. The KU Leuven is also involved to do the monitoring aspect. And in short, we've got two trajectories. One is towards greening the stakeholders. So that's, for example, some trajectories that we have got with residential care centers, where we've got three locations, and then we've got 3 neighborhoods. And today I will talk to you about the Spaanse Kroon neighborhood, which was the first neighborhood that we took on board. So a lot of you may know this, but the people online following don't know it, so that's why I will explain. It's quite it's a residential neighborhood just outside of the city center of Leuven, roughly around 250 houses, a mix of young and old people, and that neighborhood was selected because it has huge potential on improving the climate change adaptation and becoming more resilient. Because before it was a lot of concrete, a lot of grey, not a lot of trees, and also quite important, they've got reasonably big gardens, because we are also working on the private domain of the citizens. So what have we done? We started with our participation location. We went to the neighborhood because we didn't want to invite them to some kind of boring meeting room. No, we went with our participation venue and our trajectory towards the people themselves. We set up some information panels. We also installed a temporary green infrastructure in one of the unused corners of the street. And that temporary green installation was made to show the potential of what we could do with their street. Because not everybody is aware of what you can do with a street. And with that pop-up garden or temporary installation, we showed the people what we could do with that, with just a small part. We also installed a bench. Here are some images of our participation location with the pop-up garden. And then we connected with the university to do all of the monitoring. So there were weather stations installed, there were soil samples taken, a baseline survey to get the feel of the knowledge and support for climate change adaptation, etc. We did biodiversity counts, so a lot of monitoring has been done prior to the start of the trajectory, and then we'll do the same surveys at the end of the trajectory to see what the changes are in on the climate change, of course, and also the support of the people. We kicked off with a introduction market, so we invited all of the citizens from that neighborhood to our location, and we gave them a lot of information. We listened to them, we explained them what we were going to do the next coming months and even year. And then throughout the span of a year and a half, we had several workshops. We had workshops on the public domain, on the private domain. We had garden safaris, we had biodiversity counts, we had a garden fair, a whole set of events where we could talk to the people, but especially listen to the people. Listen, what are your concerns? Why don't you want more green? What is happening in this neighborhood? What can we do? What can't we do to see what the support is and to improve our the plan that we were designing with our landscapes and architectures. Also talk about mobility. So a whole set of events to really listen to the citizens what was going on. In general, for the public domain, we gave them 3 options: small, medium, large. Because if I ask the 3 people, do you want more green in your street? Of course. Sir, do you want more green in your street? Yeah, but maybe you've got maybe 1 tree, small design, and you, sir, maybe you want a complete urban jungle. So to know what the people, what do you want, we gave them 3 scenarios: small, medium, large. This was the current situation. As you can see, a very classic street with 2 sidewalks, a lot of gray. In a small scenario, this would be the case where we transform the car park spaces into water permeable spaces and add a few shrubs and a few trees. This would give this kind of sketch design. In a medium scenario, we would remove 1 sidewalk, which makes a lot more place for more trees, more biodiversity, and then this would give this kind of sketch design. And then in the large design, and this is the design that we were able to land on. So this is the design that we are currently at this stage are carrying out. This is the large scenario where we remove both of the sidewalks. We've got room for bigger trees, water infiltration on the public domain, a lot of biodiversity strips. We're also installing a one-way direction to create more space, less space for cars and more space for the people. The general goal of this plan is that the neighborhood was designed in the 60s and 70s really in function of the car with a lot of car park spaces, and now we are giving back this neighborhood to the people, to the kids, that they can cycle outside, can play outside and really enjoy the street in a very green atmosphere. So this is the vision, this is the sketch design. So it's going to be a woon-erf or kind of a home zone, shared space for everybody, one-way streets, large planting areas, a lot of extra trees, a lot of extra biodiversity. This is the actual design. And then, yeah, sorry, it's in Dutch, but roughly it's 36% of the public domain will be changed from gray to green, to either a green space or a water permeable space. And to give you an idea, that 36% is roughly about 36 tennis courts, which allows to have every year 3 million of water to infiltrate locally. Because in Flanders, as in a lot of other places in Europe, we've got a problem with drought and not enough water, sometimes too much water. But by allowing this, or by doing these actions, 3 million liters of water can infiltrate locally, which is roughly around 20,000 bathtubs, which makes it a bit more accessible. And these are some images of the work in progress. If you've got some time, go and have a look, go and cycle through this neighborhood. It's not finished yet, but it gives you an idea already of what we have been doing and what we are doing at the moment. That was for the public domain, but like I said, we're also working on the private domain, because we as a city, we can do a lot. We can do everything with the streets and the squares, but we also need the citizens of Leuven to be on board, because there's a lot of potential with the gardens. And therefore we took some actions to green and improve biodiversity in the gardens. Together with the university, we made some flashcards that were that came in handy, and we tried to bundle the forces. And what we did is we tried to support the neighbors, but also to encourage them. Supporting them, we did through several actions. We have got the garden rangers that can go to people's houses and give them free advice on how to make their garden more biodiverse, more climate adaptive, which was a huge success. It's a very good initiative that is very popular, the garden rangers. There's also a joint purchasing of planting materials, so that if people want to buy trees or shrubs or plants for their garden, they can do it at a reduced price. And specifically for this neighborhood, we did a delivery service. So instead of picking up the plants and trees, we tried to remove as much barriers as we could. So we delivered the trees to their doorstep. We also gave them extra support. I've set up a tile taxi or tegeltaxi, because in Flanders there's, like in a lot of places, too much concrete, also in people's garden. And what we did is we set up a service where people can order a tile taxi online, and then once a month that tile taxi comes and picks up the removed stones or removed sealed surfaces from people's driveways, or if people have removed parts of their driveway, parts of their terraces, the city of Leuven comes and picks up the stones for free. We also organized a garden fair, because when we were talking to the people and the citizens, they say, okay, yeah, maybe I want to plant a tree or improve my garden, but I don't have time, or my back is sore. There were a lot of people that are not really convinced yet. So what we've done then, we organized a garden fair in the local park, Abby, where we invited 10 local ecological garden contractors and garden landscapers, so that the citizens of these neighborhoods could immediately reach out to these contractors, and they could ask their questions like, okay, maybe I want to change my driveway or remove my driveway, or I want to plant an extra tree, can you help me, or how much would it cost? So that people were immediately connected with these landscapers and garden designers. That was a very good event as well. Had a lot of positive feedback, and also we know that several citizens from that neighborhood took action and really connected and went on board with some of our contractors. The City of Leuven has also got some financial support in place, so grants and subsidies for greening the gardens. We've got, if you plant a tree in your front yard, you receive a grant of €75. If you replace sealed surfaces or paving with greenery or shrubs, you can collect some funding through the city. If you install a green roof, also very much on rainwater. If you retain and reuse rainwater, you get grants. So for rainwater pit, rainwater barrel, infiltration systems, etc. And then finally, like I said, we had a lot of supporting actions, but we also wanted to encourage them. And what we did is we created for this neighborhood in the Spaanse Kroon, we gave them 3 challenges. So the first challenge was green your garden, and green your garden is to plant extra trees, extra shrubs, etc. Second is remove sealed surfaces, so remove part of your driveway, part of your terrace, unnecessary concrete from your garden. And third challenge is catch rainwater from your roof, so install a rainwater barrel, rainwater pit, wadi, etc. And for every action that they took, they can collect stars, and the more stars they get, they can receive a reward. So for example, if they get the first star, they receive a pizza food truck for their neighborhood event. If they've got the 3 stars, we will organize a garden concert in the park, in the local park. And the goal of these challenges is what was to create a bigger awareness, but also that people would interact with each other and that say, okay, why don't you plant a tree, or can I help you? And that they find each other to really, because the challenges are and the actions that they can take are mostly individual, but the stars they can collect are communal, and the rewards that they get are also for the entire neighborhood. And now we are very much aware that the citizens have taken these actions themselves. So now they are communicating from out the one neighbor to another neighbor, like, okay, come on, why don't you plant an extra tree, or can I help you? And they're interacting with each other to collect these stars. Finally, like I said, this is a European project, and we've got 3 neighborhoods, and also some with the learnings of Madrid and Krakow. We have been working rather on a kind of practices book with all of the learnings and the knowledge that we've gathered from these 3 cities and the 3 several pilot locations. We made a practices book for other cities to spread the learnings of the Life Pact project. So it's a book or publication aimed at other cities, other organizations, nature-based solutions expert, etc. And it has got 6 practices or 6 chapters about taking actions, about stakeholder mapping, about co-designing, monitoring, evaluating, etc. And it's now online since last week. If you go to lifepact.eu, you can find all of the information. That was my presentation. I'm not sure if I was in time or not. Thank you.
Questions, so the people with the introduction will sit in front. There will be a micro coming to you, that's for the recording, so you can't speak, just you need to have the micro for the recording. So who wants to ask the first question? Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, my name is Marit. I'm the policy advisor for Una.Europa here at KU Leuven, and I have a question for Baptiste because it was interesting to see that you have in the Life Pact project also Madrid and Krakow, and also the University of Madrid and the University of Krakow are also involved in Una.Europa, so it was great to see a link there. I was just wondering, the approach that you presented for Leuven, is this comparable to what you would do in Madrid or Krakow, or is it different there? Can you say something about that?
It is comparable, yes and not. We have been working closely together with Madrid and Krakow to share learnings on how do we do participation, how do we do nature-based solutions, etc. But of course, every city has got different contexts, and also every location has its own context. For example, in Madrid, they are working on two school areas, but in very deprived and very challenged neighborhoods with a lot of social housing and a very complex area. So we share learnings on NBS and on participation, but of course every city has got its own dynamic and its own context, and the site is very specific. So that not everything that we do here applies to Madrid, but for example in Krakow there are a lot more let's say regular areas that they are tackling, and there we are very closely working together to share the knowledge that we've gathered here to copy and replicate in Madrid. So similar kind of actions, similar kind of workshops. And not only to Madrid and Krakow, but a lot of the learnings from Leuven have also been copied throughout Flanders as well. We know that St. Niklaas is working on the same level. Mechelen is copying our small, medium, large scenario. So the learnings, not only through Madrid and Krakow, but also in other parts of Flanders and Europe have been shared. But it has to be tweaked or modified for every location.
So if we combine both lectures, was the spaansynchroon already good in the general way of approaching it, the 330-300 scheme, before they changed it, or have you, no? And is it now?
Yeah. Before they were like you could see the image. There was a park already, so that was the 300 rule was okay. But the streets there were full of concrete, not a single tree, or a few maybe, but not a lot of trees were in place. And now we will add around 85 extra trees in that one neighborhood. So a lot more trees will be visible, and the coverage will be more than enough. Yeah.
I suppose most of these houses have gardens.
They have gardens, yeah.
So
but not every garden is very biodiverse. A lot of gardens have got sealed surfaces. Have got not one car, but 2, 3, 4 cars, or a complete paved front garden, and that is something that we don't prefer. We prefer green gardens. So even though they've got quite reasonably big gardens, they were not always very biodiverse. And by inspiring them, we want them to take action to increase biodiversity and make them more climate adaptive.
I suppose the people living in the spaansynchroon are on a rather high socio-economical status.
Yeah.
They are prepared for listening, they are motivated, I suppose. But there are other areas in Leuven where you can think that it would be far more.
We are now, the second neighborhood that we are tackling from the Life Pact project is the Rietensplein neighborhood, which is more of a lower income, more social housing, or more of a mixed group. And I have to be honest, it is more challenging. There we're not working with the small, medium, large, but two other, and it's we will not be able to do as much as we would like. but still there were going to be major changes, but it's a bit more challenging. And therefore you have to take a bit more time, do some extra workshops to really listen to them and inform them on why do we have to take these actions, why do we have to improve biodiversity, why do we have to do this. So we have to take extra time, yeah.
Maybe first on this last topic, is this mainly because of a loss of parking spaces for cars? And the second question, maybe if I understood correctly, then a large tree is more effective than a small tree. But at the same time, if you look around in communities, sometimes have the idea that the policy of the cities is mostly to plant small trees. More often, because of maintenance, I'm not sure why, but how do you see this? Sorry.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'll jump on the car park spaces. Car park spaces is in every street, every square, every neighborhood that we do is always a challenge. People are, not everybody, but a lot of people are very connected to their car and are like, I have to park here. I've been parking here for 50 years. I want to park here the next coming, maybe 50 years ago, but I want to keep parking my car here. And what we do is, in most of the, when we green neighborhoods, usually we have to cut car park spaces to create space and make them more water permeable. And it's not always, or it's never a popular measure, but it's about finding the balance, because we do also have people that are very much a big fan of our projects and of greening the city, and people that are very much against it. And it's about finding the balance between removing car park spaces and keeping people happy. It's always a challenge. It's finding the balance.
Thinking about it, because on the pictures of the Spaanse Kroon, no cars were visible, which is maybe
But and also in that neighborhood, there were before there were 120 car park spaces, and so we did counts, and now there will be 70. So we cut about 50 car park spaces, but in that neighborhood they also have got their own driveway, but still people were complaining. It's always a challenge. And about the trees, indeed, it's always a mix of course they plant younger trees that are small. But where we have got place, we try to have some bigger trees as well. For example, in Spaanse Kroon, most of them will be medium-sized trees, because sometimes people are complaining they grow too big and then I don't have enough light, or my solar panels are in the shade. So also there, it's about finding the right tree at the right place. Where we've got a space, we will plant bigger trees, and if there's not enough space, it will be small to medium-sized trees.
Yeah, to pick in on that, it's crystal clear that the health effects of bigger trees are multiple times bigger than smaller trees. We did a study in Brussels where we showed that the same volume of tree canopy spread over a lot of trees or one big tree, the impact of that big tree on medication sales was significant in that neighborhood. And that is and I mentioned it already to the KU Leuven and also to the city. The key is not, you cannot plant a big tree. You cannot plant a very big tree. It's in some places there is no space, but it's also not practical. It's very costly. But please make an effort to keep the big trees. If you want to make space for a parking lot, and there is 20 trees there, you don't have to cut all of them. Just work with the trees and work around them, protect them, because the time you need to recover from cutting a tree and planting a new one, it's not 5 years, it's not 10 years, it's 15, 20 years. And that's 15, 20 years that you're actually making your environment less healthy than it was. So that is, and it's difficult because it's much more easy for a contractor to cut all the trees, make their infrastructure in place, and then they ask which kind of trees should we plant, and then they come with small trees, and that's a bit of a lack of vision also, I suppose. So yes, keep the big trees in place, but have a bit of, you have to deal with reality as well. You cannot, very close to houses, you don't plant trees, or you don't let the trees be grown 30 meters, because it's also not safe. So you have to balance your choices there.
You know, my Latin is much better than my English. May I speak Dutch? Ik heb 2 vragen. Leuven Centrum, Hoeverplein, Ladeuzeplein, de schande van Leuven, omwille van wekelijkse markt en jaarlijkse kermis. Ik bedoel, het neveneffect van uw plannen wordt soms overschat en dus daardoor worden uw plannen niet gerealiseerd. Maar dit is voor Leuven een pure schande, die 2 pleinen in beton met die oppervlakte. 1. 2. De Spaanse kroon ken ik vrij goed van binnenin. De duurtijd van uw projecten verbaast mij. Mijn vraag is, ligt dit aan het bedenken van het ontwerp voortdurend in verandering, of ligt dit aan de politieke moed om dit te realiseren? En 2, beseft u wat op dit moment reeds de bouwgrond in de Spaanse kroon kost en dat die gaat verdubbelen door uw projecten, waar ik niet tegen ben, maar dit is een neveneffect.
Before you answer the question, perhaps try to translate it.
So three questions, thank you. First question was, indeed we've got some squares in Leuven that are very much grey and a lot of concrete. And also there it's about finding the balance. Like you said, we've got a weekly market. The city of Leuven, if we let the green department decide, it could be maybe a forest. But we also have got tourism, we've got economy, we've got a whole other, the city is not only about green, it's also about organizing events. And those 2 squares, for example, are very much in favor on organizing events. And therefore, the greening is not as I would like it, or as the green department would like it. I completely agree there could be more green on those squares, but it's always also there. It's about finding the balance between how much green can we do, and can we still use those squares for bigger events like the weekly market and other musical events, etc. So it's about finding the balance. Second question was the Spaanse kroon. Indeed, it takes a lot of time, but the thing is that we took a lot of time because we wanted to make a good plan and take everybody's opinion on board. So throughout the year or year and a half that we had several workshops, and between every workshop there's like 6 weeks to 2 months, sometimes 3 months, because we have to go back back to the drawing board, and okay, we've got this feedback, how can we implement it? Okay, but if you do this, we have to go back to the mobility, or have to think about this, or what about the sewage here? So there are a lot of different factors to make sure that all of the input that we collected to go into a new plan, we have to first go to, like I said, the other departments to make sure that the modifications that we want to do, is it okay for mobility? Is it okay for the green department? Is it okay for the political as well? And then we have to go back, make a new design, and plan a new workshop to go back. And it takes some time to go back and forth, but also by investing this time, it also gives the people in the neighborhood some more time to reflect about it and let it sink in the people's mind. Because if you would do the same trajectory bundled into 3 months instead of a year, first it's too much for the people. They have to go to a workshop every week. And also they don't have time to think about it and let it evolve in their mind. So taking some extra time also gives the people some more reflection time. And third question was on the housing prices. Indeed, not only Spaanse kroon, but Leuven itself is already a very highly priced property, and houses cost a lot of money. And indeed, by doing these kind of actions, housing prices tend to go up or go higher, which is of course not the goal of the city of Leuven. The city of Leuven wants to make sure that people can still buy a house in their own neighborhood or in their own city. So therefore, there are of course social housing and other other housing units being developed, but not doing it and not taking these climate change actions would be a lot bigger problem than housing prices that would go up. If you don't take actions, the city would not be livable in 20, 30, 40 years, and then maybe housing prices would go down. But it is gentrification. It is a thing.
Yeah, I very much like your questions. I fully agree about Ladeuze-plan and the Hoeve-plan, but there is more. We have to realize we're living in a city, so there's a lot of functions that need to be space for a lot of functions. And one of the problems we have with greening cities is that green has never been in the picture. We have never thought about urban design with taking green into the picture. It's only the last couple of decades that people think, oh, but green spaces are important. So these places are already occupied, and something which is there already, changing it is difficult. I'm pretty much convinced that you can make Ladeuze-plan green and functional. But then you need to think out of the box, and that's something. Yeah. That it's like Baptist says. A lot of a lot of things are compartmentalized. So so you have the water unit, you have the green unit, you have the recreational people from the city, and bringing them all together and make one big master plan, it's really a big challenge. And that's also the reason, and we will have a discussion afterwards with some people from the KU Leuven, that's also a problem within the KU Leuven. There is a lot of people that want things, but bringing them together, making a master plan is taking all the functions in context. Because, and that's my point I wanted to make about Spaanse Kroon, the biggest mistake we can make is now to push through and say, okay, Ladeuze-plan, everything out, we put trees, because then it will not work. It will be unsustainable because not all the people that are involved are supporting that idea. And there you need time. In Spaanse Kroon, you need the time to get everybody on board, because if you don't, you get in trouble. Try to plant a tree in a city. It's not easy. There is a lot of arguments that are used to not plant a tree. So therefore you need this participatory approach to get people some ownership. And then green gentrification, as it's called, the fact that if you green a city or green an area, that the people that come and live there are richer people. That's a scientific thing. We know that happens, and that's a process that has been studied, and there is not yet a good solution for it, but we have to think about how to do it. The best solution is make the whole city green, and then there is no differentiation anymore. But yeah. That makes it also doing science in cities is challenging because it has to be very interdisciplinary. We cannot plant a tree. I work together with Tre, she's from social sciences, because we need her. We need to work together with people who are specialized in behavioral change of people. Because if Baptiste and I would decide, it would look much different here. Yeah. Same. But this is not how it works in practice. We cannot.
Same with the heritage department. I'm not saying that the heritage department is a bad thing, not at all. We need to preserve heritage. But for example, the square here in front, Pater Damianplein, will also have will be greened in the coming months. But also there, we cannot put trees everywhere, because then the heritage department say, yeah, if you plant a tree, you can't see the building anymore. Which is of course a valid thing. So there are like Ben says, there are a lot of factors that come into place on urban planning and designing a square, on mobility, on accessibility, on economy, on heritage, and it's about finding the balance.
But what is key is to get all these units and all these stakeholders, make them aware about the relevance and the need of green spaces, because then they can think themselves, maybe we can put a tree and still make sure that people can see the building, or we can organize a market even though there is some trees in the middle of the square, or we can organize a concert with trees in front of us. I mean, but as long as they are not convinced about the relevance and the importance of green spaces, we can only but shout and say, do something. And that's the point we try to make, is like,
I always compare it with sorry if I cut it, I always compare it with heritage. Everybody knows if you have got a square or an old building, everybody's going to say, okay, but watch out for heritage. Are we sure? Everybody has got like a heritage reflex, and everybody has got heritage on their mind. But greening a space is not on everybody's mind yet. We have to try to make instead of not only a heritage reflex, but also have a green reflex. Like, okay, we're going to redo a square or a house. How can we add more green and make it work for heritage as well?
Do you know how green?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't ask questions, we're just going to talk.
Sorry for stopping you. Very small question. How does this relate to everything that is going on with urban farming on a small scale? Fruit trees, there are some initiatives in perhaps bigger cities where it's more relevant, where you have food deserts, and that they say in some poorer areas we will put fruit trees. There were some initiatives in Leuven, but I think they are no longer there. At the Sportoise, for example, you had there many fruit trees, they're gone. My kids are very unhappy. So is there a relationship with this work and urban farming, gardening, and these things?
Thank you for your question. So as you know or may not know, Leuven is one of the 100 smart and climate neutral cities. So the city of Leuven wants to be one of the mission cities throughout Europe and wants to become climate neutral towards 2030. And we made a big contract with, I think, 86 breakthrough projects on our road towards climate neutrality. And one of the main chapters in this contract is climate adaptation, and also urban farming is one of the breakthrough projects that we want to increase the efforts that we are taking there. For example, at the Park up there, there are some urban farming already. The real forest fruits, and it's not such a big thing in Leuven. To be honest, me personally, I'm not such a big fan as well. I'm not sure if I want to pick fruits at a place where cars are driving or not. It's not my cup of tea personally, or my cup of fruit. But urban farming is something that we are also working on and will be increased in the years to come.
Maybe I can add. So with urban farming, we will not realize climate neutrality, but I think it is a very important social aspect of bringing people into contact with nature, with green, and that's very important to increase appreciation or acceptance of other green infrastructure in the city. And that's how I see that urban farming. So I think it's also for social health, what I was talking about, is extremely important. Yeah.
Okay, I have here also.
My name is Elena. I work at the international office here at KU Leuven at the Una Europa team. First of all, I'd like to thank you very much for those very interesting presentations. They were very visual and really easy to follow. And I think the work that you're both on both sides doing here at KU Leuven, but also at the city of Leuven, is really impressive. And just for a year, you managed to achieve so much. It is apparently really challenging to involve all the stakeholders and also to keep citizens motivated and to increase motivation. And it must be also challenging to make sure that the city becomes greener, but also still accessible, because a lot is happening here. There's a very high population. We still need to access early in the morning on time the schools where we need to bring our kids, and we need to be able to arrive on time to our jobs. And this is really, really challenging when, for example, the car parking areas or the possibility to use public transport. So basically my question is it also challenging to make sure that the public transport is part of this, your plans? The bicycle lanes are obviously there, but Leuven could be quite hilly, and with young kids it's not always possible. I was wondering whether city mobility was also in the picture, or this is a process perhaps part of the future plans.
Mobility is a very important thing. City has to be accessible. Well, what the city of Leuven has been doing for several years now is trying to get the modal shift, that people no longer or not only use their car, but use a lot more public transport, use a lot more bicycles or other means of transportation, so that by installing cycling streets and increasing bicycle storage and improving cycling lanes, etc. Also with the hop-in points. So there are, in the city of Leuven, there are 50 hop-in points where you can, for shared cars and shared cargo bikes and other car sharing and deelmobiliteit. Shared mobility, sorry. So we want people that, of course, people can use their car, but preferably not as much as before, that people think about other means of transportation. So therefore we're trying to improve bicycle infrastructure, and that every neighborhood has got access to shared cars, for example, to reduce the amount of cars in the city. Also, the city center itself is a pedestrian zone, so cars are not allowed. And every year that pedestrian zone increases a bit. There's also the Leuven mobility plan, where the city is like divided into 6 pie pieces. You can only drive in at one part of the city. You can't just drive around anymore wherever you want. And by taking these actions, the city has got a lot less cars in the city center. So cars have gone down and bicycles have gone up. Also by public transportation and bus uses have gone up. The city has... Go ahead.
I want to make the link with what I said before. I'm not saying Leuven is doing it like that. I think they do a good job, but again, very often you talk from a mobility perspective, and then they make a mobility plan, and they make a circulation plan, and so on. And they sometimes say, that tree is in my way, so I cut it down because for my mobility plan it's not okay. But what if you make a mobility plan where you say, green spaces can help me in my mobility plan. If I make certain areas of the city more green, then I will stimulate people to take their bike, because it's scientifically proven that if you have a green route, people take the green route. So why not use the green space from the beginning? So normally what you do in a mobility plan is you take your map of the city and you start to think about mobility. Why do we do that? Why don't we take the map of Leuven and look at, we have mobility, we have green spaces, we have climate mitigation that we need to realize, bring that together and come up with an integrated plan. And that's where things today fail often, because the mobility unit is making a mobility plan, and now what is the benefit of the circulation plan of Leuven, but it was not the intention, is that because there is a circulation plan, there is more room for green space. So Baptist's job became easier, because now there is less cars in this area, so we can, but that was not the idea. But why not? Why can't you say, we're going to make a circulation plan, and in the meantime we're going to optimize other functions, like saying, okay, but this is the circulation plan, but we also want to make space for green here. So maybe our circulation plan should not be like this, but we secure green space here and we make another circulation plan. And that is the way, that is, in my opinion, where we have to go to. But that's, I can tell you, and Baptiste will, we work in compartments. That's how we organize, in private companies, at KU Leuven, at the city, and we have to break those walls, yeah, those barriers. And that's, in my opinion, the main challenge.
So we are already 7 minutes past 1 o'clock, but it was indeed very interesting. So I'm looking forward to the plans of Father Damien Square, and I suppose that we also can ask the KU Leuven also to put some trees. Thank you very much for the introduction, and I hope to see you back later on in our lecture dates.